This is episode 536 on the 20th of June 2022. So, game 4 of the India South Africa series, where the series was on the line. The careers of a few individuals who had just started their careers were on the line, that would they be picked up for the 20 over World Cup or not? Would they be given a chance because of the crowding of certain positions? Who would be picked up? Who would be left out? Who would be the unlucky ones? What would the useless selection committee led by an individual who had no merit while playing the sport, the chairperson of selectors, who would they choose? Who would they drop? What would be the criteria? Is something that was very interesting to look at. But before that, once again, let's look at the anti-Pant brigade situation. Full marks to Pant and a blow to the anti-Pant brigade, because the series has ended at 2-2, which means Bangalore did not witness a classic because of rains, with which comes the question, why was Bangalore chosen as a venue when it was known that rain would affect the particular match? But that's the thing.
It's 7:30.
The venue was chosen because of whatever rotation policies that is created by the governing body and the deal they have with the various state boards. So that's onto them, because that's something which one doesn't need to worry about. But here comes the thing. The anti-Pant brigade was dealt the blow when the series made it 2-2, but his own personal performances, which one can say were not good, but it really doesn't matter. In a 20 over game, it doesn't make a difference. Of course, you are fighting for a spot in the team and at a certain position, with so many other individuals also trying to get in and fight for the sport. That's what is so unique and at the same time irritating about this sport, that you can only have 11 individuals and you can't substitute them as per your will. You call it a game which is innovating. Well, it may be innovative, but in such things, it's a rigid game. So now this anti-Pant brigade, because the series is at 2-all, ended at 2-all, is focusing on shot selection and lobbying for Karthik to replace him. Despite Karthik's performance and Pant's mistake, Pant won't be dropped. Let me tell you, yes, everyone says Pant hasn't performed in the 20 over format. His strike rate of 130 is not good enough. I have already talked enough about strike rate, and strike rate is irrelevant. So this brigade needs to have a control on their defamatory comments. Okay, Karthik did well, but that's the strange thing about someone like Dinesh Karthik. If he was such a good player, why for a long time was he in and out of the team? He was in, then he was out, he was picked, then he was dropped. Then there were other reasons. The same guy whom we are raving about, whom we are waxing lyricals about because he hit 150 and also continued with his, and he also continued on the back of his performances by the Bangalore team. Well, why was he not a permanent fixture? If he is such a good player, if he is that finisher that is needed, with his contemporary Dhoni having already retired 3 years ago. Why was not he part of the team? Why was he not part of the World Cup team last year? Why was there so much anti-Karthik thing happening 12 months ago and suddenly there's a love? Why? Because he performs well at the domestic level and couple of performances at the international level. It just shows the hypocrisy and the double standards of the individuals. Let me tell you, 6 years from now, they will have the same thing to say about a certain Sanju Samson, who has also been in and out of the team, not been given regular chances, and one day we'll see Sanju Samson in the same light we see Karthik as. The irony is that we see the 20 over World Cup as such an important thing. I don't. It's a fun tournament. You win, you lose, it really doesn't matter. It may be important for a few individuals, the 20 over World Cup, but overall, this tournament has no exciting thing to be excited about. But let's talk about game 4. India made 6 for 169 and South Africa were bowled out for 87. After every pseudo expert said that South Africa is a strong team. They have Rabada and Nokia and Ngidi and Maharaj and Shamsi and Wayne Pretorius and Wayne Panel and Marco Jensen and whatnot, who can do well at the international level, who have proven themselves not only at the international level but also in their respective domestic tournaments for their domestic teams. The interesting thing about game 4 was that India were around 60 in the first 10 overs and they went on to hit over 100 runs in the last 10, with more than 70 coming in the last 5. And all the excitement was around Pandya and Karthik, who both have been in and out of the team. 8 months ago, we were all anti-Pandya. Suddenly, he becomes the captain of the Gujarat team. The Gujarat team has some luck and they go on to win the tournament, and now everybody wants him back in the team. Wow, how things can change in matter of months. And then when South Africa needed 170 to win, they were never in the game. They had no skin in the game. They run out of gas. That the likes of De Kock and Miller and their contemporaries who were continuously playing for their domestic teams in the National T20 Cup. Did they lose gas? Yes, you will lose the steam eventually. I think Miller, who had been playing for Gujarat since March, and then an extended 10-day into June, this was always going to happen. Yes, this was fatigue, and we all know the National T20 Cup or the Indian Pathetic League always leads to injuries, fatigue and whatnot. De Kock himself was injured in the middle of this particular tournament, and I think it had nothing to do with the injury which came from this particular series, but it was always going to be there. So when the Indian Cricket Board decides that they will increase the number of matches because now they are greedy, they are avarice, and you can use all kinds of adjectives for the Indian Cricket Board. They have no concern about the players' well-being. They force players to play while the foreign players can opt out and they won't be punished. We all know if an Indian player opts out of this tournament, they are going to be in serious trouble. They will lose a paycheck, they will lose a spot in the team, they will lose all kinds of respect they have garnered on pseudo media. So that's the dilemma for Indian players who have to play throughout this National T20 Cup. Rest, one game rest is fine, but missing the entire tournament, they cannot. Even retired individuals who are only playing this tournament to augment their paycheck have to play every game. And then we say that the environment in a particular team is relaxing. If you're playing every game and you're not going to say anything when the greedy Indian Cricket Board decides to increase the number of matches from next year, you make it from 2 months to 2.5 months. which means you have to play maybe 5 more games. Each team will have to play maybe 18, 19 games instead of 14 games they play, because the team management of the various teams say we want them to play more games, because these team management know that more games, more advertisements, more money in the bank, more money in the bank, and the average grows. So I'm not impressed, and I'm not going to agree that increasing the number of matches will lead to anything. And no one cares about the stupid media rights. No one cares whatever win, find fault they earn. It really doesn't matter. So I won't be surprised if the likes of Rishabh Pant or Bhuvneshwar Kumar or Harshal Patel find themselves on the injury list very soon. It can happen. The only way it cannot happen is if they are given a break, which won't be possible, because in 10 days' time we have to play that rescheduled fifth test match, and the way the advertisements are being shaped, it's being said that we will steamroll the team. I don't think that's going to happen. The performance against New Zealand by the England team will have an impact on how the England India series, the final match goes. We are presuming that India will steamroll them, win it 3-1, and all will be good. It's one match. Of course, we don't look at the past, then why are we looking at the future? In 10 days' time, they have to do what they have to do, and that's the beauty of such sports. I do not agree that making it into a 75 or a 80-day tournament will have any impact. It will impact viewership. The matches are anyway starting at 8 p.m., which means the matches are expected to go till 12 a.m. local time. No one wants to watch that late. It will impact viewership. It will impact a lot of other things. So this decision to increase the number of matches is a very poor decision. It will have a huge impact on the players' state of mind. No one, though that's not important. And what excuse will people give? They are professional athletes. They are supposed to play. They are not supposed to back out from playing. So if 5 more matches are added, will it make the tournament more interesting? No. I think 14 games, that is 7 games each, if they have to play against each other, is good enough. Adding more games is not going to make the tournament more interesting. It will just affect what is called the bilateral or the private series, but the Indian Cricket Board is not concerned about what is petty for them, that is the bilateral series. But I'm sure foreign players, overseas players will either opt out from the entire tournament, not minding missing the paycheck, or they will, when needed, called by their respective national boards, leave the tournament midway, which they can do because we cannot force them to stay the entire tournament. But the Indian players cannot do that. And as far as the coaches in these teams are concerned, well, those coaches are irrelevant. So let's not even talk about them. And then back to this particular match, of course, it was 2-2 before game 5 was affected by rain, which for me, once again, the question came, why was Bangalore chosen as a venue when you were aware that rain will play a part? And if you knew rain will play a part, why did you plan accordingly? Why did you shift to a smaller venue where rain would not affect? You can do that. It's possible. When you have so much money in the bank, you can shift from one ground to the other in the same city, or you can say the 5th game is not happening. Anyways, rain is going to affect it, and then let's see what happens. So, what were the learnings from this particular tournament? Well, don't care about such tournaments. The 20-over World Cup has no such importance. Of course, with so many tournaments happening, with so many domestic tournaments happening. Every country has its own domestic tournament. But unlike the Indian Cricket Board, they are not looking to expand. If they have 70 games, they're going to keep it at 70 games and focus on the quality. Quantity, increasing the quantity in number of matches will have an effect on the quality because it will affect the players. Don't be surprised if you find at least 10 to 12 players in the next 1 year affected by injuries. Why was Rahul affected by injuries? Well, let's say Rishabh Pant was not, or somebody else was not. That's fair enough. But it could have been easily Rishabh Pant who could have been affected by the injuries in this particular tournament. It could have been Ishan Kishan, it could have been Gaikwad. Anybody could have been affected by the injuries in this particular tournament. Of course, Rahul became the victim of an injury, and it has nothing to do with his own fitness. It has everything to do with him playing matches and then of course playing all the 14-15 games including the semi-finals without a break. The only break they get is when they have to wait for the next match, or they have to travel from one city to another, but even that doesn't qualify as a break. The quality of this tournament, once again, I can tell you, will be affected by the rise in quantity as in number of matches. It will affect, and I can be assured the injury prone league will come into play. Players will be injured, they will be affected by the fact that they have to play every game and they cannot afford to miss one unless it's a very serious situation. Foreign players can always opt out when they feel that they have more pressing engagements at hand, or they have to look at other aspects as far as this particular tournament is concerned. Going from 74, 75 to 80 matches, excluding semi-finals, will not make a difference. The only difference it will make is that it will compromise the already poor quality of the tournament, the quality in terms of the scheduling, in terms of the way the players are forced to play every game, in terms of the greed related to the money aspect of this particular tournament. They will all come into play. So for me, those media rights, I am not impressed. Despite all the patriotism being shown as far as the media rights is concerned, I am not impressed. They could have earned 500,000 crores, it still wouldn't have affected me. Whether they have earned 44,000 crores, which means ads will also pour, increasing the number of ads, well, we'll see. But as far as the 17, 18 individuals who will go to Australia, who are the 17, 18 individuals? Let's presume that Rohit, Rahul if declared fit, Kohli, Bumrah, Chahal, these are the individuals who are in the team by default. That leaves a slot for the wicket-keeping position between Karthik, Samson, Pant and Ishan Kishan. All four are equally talented, and if you want to compare them to the past, I won't do that right now. I'll do it at a later stage, but don't be surprised if 7 to 8 years from now, Samson finds himself in the same spot Dinesh Karthik is finding himself as the finisher, as the dream coming true to play another World Cup. Why was he not part of the team for the previous World Cups? Why was he in? Why was he out? This is hypocrisy. The only reason they included him in the team was because there was no Rohit, no Rahul, no Kohli, no Suryakumar Yadav, so they had to get somebody experienced, somebody with at number 6 who could have a more mature performance, who could deal with whatever is happening in that situation. Of course, I like Dinesh Karthik. Age is not going to be a factor, and there are a lot of people who will be in the team despite the whole age thing. Of course, you read today's newspaper and They have started talking in negative terms about Gaikwad. After 6 games, he hasn't made runs. He doesn't have the average. So the average zero skilled journalists who are only there because of nepotism and not because they deserve to be there are suddenly talking about an individual who has worked his way up the ladder, found himself in the national team. Okay, he hasn't done well, but then it doesn't matter. You wouldn't do that for a hockey player because hockey is a team game, while this is not a team game. Otherwise, we would never be talking about individual performances because in hockey and in football, while for a while it does matter who scores the goal on a larger macro system, it doesn't matter how the team wins as long as a team wins. They win by field goal, penalty shootouts, penalty strokes, or shootouts after the match is tied or equalized. It really doesn't matter. The interesting thing was by the time the match ended because of rains and the cutoff time, had the rain stopped, if the umpires had any smartness about them, I would have said, why don't we have 1 over tiebreaker game? Let's do that. Let's forget what happened when India for 2 for 28 and 21 balls before rain once again affected the match. So let's speculate. India are 28 for 2 after 3.3 overs. Two talented batters in Iyer and Pant are waiting for their chances. South Africa says we are doing well because we've got Nokia and Ngidi and Rabada and Brain Pretorius and Keshav Maharaj to do the job. But what if the match had happened? Let's speculate. India, let's say they had crawled their way to 160, 165. They could have done that. You never know. Then would South Africa have chased with the rain affected game, with the whole dew factor coming into play, with the whole ball is wet excuse coming into play? One never knows because that never happened. Now India has at least 10 more games. They have, before the World Cup happens, they have 5 games against West Indies, 2 games against Ireland, 3 games against England, and also a couple of games in the Asia Cup. So at least 12 to 13 games. Who will be the lucky 17 who will be going to Australia? One doesn't know. And what do the untalented and unskilled selectors have in mind while selecting? Well, they themselves had no merit being in the team, but they have to judge a player by the performance in the national tournament as well as in the international tournaments. And for me, performances in a 20 over tournament, national or international, is not that critical. It's for fun. Karthik had his luck. He performed well for Bangalore, gave an open expression about playing for the country again, and then the selectors, seeing that 3 or 4 experienced guys had straight away headed to England to play that test match, gave him a chance. If anyone out of Rahul, Surya, Rohit were there in the team, or Kohli, Karthik would have never been there. So a bit of luck and the way the tournament was scheduled, when it was scheduled, made a huge difference. What is scheduled for 1 week from today is the greatest spectacle. I won't tell you, but this talk show reaches a major milestone 1 week from today. And what does that mean? It means it's time to celebrate at the highest levels. So what will happen 1 week from today? I will surely let you know what will happen 1 week from today. But all I can hint is it will be the greatest celebration of the greatest spectacle on earth, where every other talk show and talk show host falls flat and they have they are nothing before me. They may have 40 years of experience, but their experience has no value because they say the same thing again. They're very rigid about certain things. We all know what they are. They're obsessed, still obsessed with a few retired, untalented, unskilled individuals who get a job as TV commentators because the broadcaster doesn't want to spend too much. He knows he can give them a check of 1 rupee, and these untalented, unskilled, nepotism based former players will get a chance and will accept it. So that's how it is. But more on that later. 1 week to go for the greatest spectacle of the greatest talk show and the greatest celebration ever seen in this particular business. So this ends episode number 536 on the 20th of June 2022 as we prepare for the greatest celebration of the greatest talk show of the greatest spectacle on the planet. Stay tuned for episode number 537 on the 22nd of June 2022.